Remy the rat always seemed to have an idol that he held above everyone else. That idol was, of course, the late and great Chef Gusteau. He was the man that Remy looked up to when it came to almost anything, but especially when it came to cooking. Gusteau was the owner of a famous 5-star restaurant as well as the author of the cookbook Anyone Can Cook, which Remy took to heart, seeing as his dream was to be as good of a cook as Gusteau once was. The inspiration he received from watching Gusteau and reading his cookbook is ultimately what drove Remy to be a chef and team up with Linguini, the novice chef who turned out to be Gusteau's biological son. But what if we told you that Remy and Linguini weren't the original rat and chef combo? That's right, there is a theory that stems from Reddit that considers the fact that the DNA evidence that comes up in Pixar's Ratatouille may have indicated that Gusteau had a helper of his own. And to make things even more serious, this theory also talks about the fact that Gusteau's death may have indeed been caused by a broken heart. Only in this case, it would have been over the loss of his little helper, rather than the poor review that the restaurant received. The movie itself may even have hinted at this through the use of a few subtle clues, including the DNA sample that was originally supposed to prove whether or not Linguini was related to Gusteau. And, thanks to some sharp-eyed fans, a possible sighting of Gusteau's little helper in one of the magazine covers in the beginning sequence of the film. Not only that, but we may even know the identity of the little helper as well, so make sure to stay till the end to hear who it could be. Now, first things first, let's talk a little bit about the conversation that Skinner had with the lawyer in Ratatouille. As you most likely recall, during the second half of the movie, Chef Skinner was in a panic over the fact that Linguini could possibly be the heir to the restaurant biologically. More specifically, concerned that Linguini was Gusteau's biological son. However, in order to hopefully dispute the concept, Chef Skinner gathers DNA from Gusteau's old hat and demands his lawyer have it tested against Linguini's hair. Now, if you remember right, there was some concern with the DNA sample. The lawyer mentions to Skinner, "I was worried about the hair sample you gave me. I had to send it back to the lab." To which Skinner wondered why, and was shocked to find out that it was because the first time it came back identified as a rodent hair, which most people assumed came from Linguini's hat and belonged to his secret helper, Remy. But as the Redditor points out, there is a problem with this idea. Skinner is never shown attempting to collect a hair sample from Linguini, meaning that we don't know exactly how he got Linguini's DNA or if it was DNA from a hair sample. What actually seems far more likely is that Skinner would have used a saliva sample instead, which he could have easily gotten off of Linguini's glass that he was using when the two had their lengthy exchange over drinks. I mean, that would be the most nonchalant way of collecting the sample without Linguini's knowledge. It would be far less suspicious than trying to acquire a strand of his hair. So, if the rat hair didn't come from Linguini's hat, then that means the only other place it could have come from, while still being mistaken for human hair, was Gusteau's old Blanche hat, which obviously leads to the next question. How did Gusteau's hair or hat come in contact with rodent DNA? The only explanation that seems relevant is the theory that Gusteau had a little chef of his own and was keeping them hidden, much like Linguini was with his. It certainly explains why Gusteau's entire motto behind cooking is that anyone can cook. It's even the central focus of his cookbook, and in the film that's proven countless times when Remy, Linguini's hidden chef, outcooks every human chef in the restaurant. So maybe Gusteau learned that for himself through the help of his own little helper. Not only that, but some fans out there with an eagle eye caught an extremely small detail in the opening sequence that really solidifies this theory. When you take a look at the cover of the Food and Wine magazine that was shown on the TV, you will see a picture of Gusteau jumping in the air, but if you pause it, there appears to be something quite suspicious. In the picture, if you look closely, you can see what appears to be a silhouette in Gusteau's hat. Upon first glance, it seems to be a really weird haircut line or shadow that he has. But upon closer inspection, it looks like it could be something more. Could that be his secret chef hiding behind the curtains? It definitely looks like it could be our first piece of physical evidence that we see that supports this theory. Another thing worth noting is concerning the circumstances surrounding the death of Gusteau. In the movie, we found out that following a scathing review from Anton Ego, which ultimately brought Gusteau's restaurant from a 5-star dining venue down to a 4, Gusteau ended up falling into a deep depression, which they say claimed his life. Now, depression is a very real and very scary thing, and it manifests itself in countless ways, shapes, and forms. However, fans always seem to wonder whether or not a negative restaurant review would be enough to kill someone. I mean, the restaurant was Gusteau's pride and joy, and it's easy to see why a bad review would bring him into a state of depression. But would it have been enough to cause his heart to stop? Honestly, what seems a lot more likely would be that, sadly, Gusteau outlived his little chef, and it ended up just being too much to bear. And it makes a lot of sense. For one thing, the life cycle of a rat tends to span the length of 1 to 3 years, give or take, meaning that while his little friend was only there for a small chunk of his life, Gusteau was likely around for the majority reality of the rat's life, and losing someone or something that close to your heart could have been enough to break anybody down to pieces, especially if the death of his little helper ended up lining up with that poor review, which was most likely the result of Gusteau not having his ace chef anymore. Now, interestingly enough, if you buy this theory, there is actually an add-on to it that explains exactly who Gusteau's little chef was. Crazy enough, it is actually a theory that states that Remy's mom was the rat who helped the critically acclaimed chef rise to fame, before whatever fate may have befallen her. The theory goes like this. When she was in an earlier part of her life, Remy's mom was the one controlling Gusteau. However, as she grew up, she ended up starting a family of her own. That, of course, would come after meeting Remy's dad, settling down, and starting their family of their own. And seeing how she fell in love and was on the verge of starting a family, she likely would not have been able to help Gusteau as much as she once had. And exploring the finer details of the theory, it seems likely that Remy's mother would have been from the same colony that his father was from. At that time, it would make sense for the colony to reside in the city of Paris rather than the outskirts. And much like her son Remy, she probably found it difficult to conform to the ways of the colony. The theory explains that during her teen phase, she rebels as most adolescents do. This would likely have been where she acquired the taste for fine cuisine, which of course Paris is known for. Much like her son, the taste for fine and fresh food would often lead her into trouble or dangerous situations, one of which would have likely resulted in her getting discovered and captured by Gusteau. Only, instead of killing her, he saw how refined her palate was, and ended up bonding with the rodent over their love of fine dining. Thus, Gusteau decided to keep her, and the two ended up becoming a team, much as Remy and Linguini did. And in Remy's mother's case, she was able to help Gusteau rise to fame, and turn his restaurant into what Remy and Linguini know it as. Now, as time passed and Remy's mother grew older, she ended up needing to become more involved with her life among the colony. This would be when she caught the attention of Remy's father, who was likely the son of the leader at the time. And after discovering her double life, Remy's father probably tried to warn her of the dangers that a double life could lead to, just like he did Remy, and ended up telling her about the countryside. And Remy's mother, who had fallen head over heels for his father, decided that it would be for the best. So the colony moved to the countryside and the two started their little family, which of course included Remy and Emile. After some time had passed, Remy's mother ended up stumbling across a newspaper that informed her of Anton Ego and the fact that he wanted to review Gusteau's restaurant, and she knew that she needed to help her friend one last time. She snuck out of the colony once again to go to the restaurant, and following close behind was Remy's father to keep her safe. On their journey, they made the horrible discovery of a bunch of rat traps that had already claimed multiple victims, which would explain why Remy's dad, who is still alive, is so overly critical of Remy's choices. He knew and saw the dangers of the kitchen after following Remy's mother back to Paris. Now, here's the thing. We don't know exactly how Remy's mother passed away, only that she did. Whether that was due to natural causes, such as a naturally short lifespan, or something far more sinister like Skinner having her killed, has yet to be seen or discussed. At this point, her manner of passing is pure speculation. It does seem more likely that she was killed somehow, due to how Remy's dad seems so opposed to Remy being in the kitchen. Maybe he saw his partner fall at the hands of one of the traps, and now he fears the same for his own son. Who knows? However, because of the lack of what we know about Remy's mom, it's safe to conclude that she is at least not around anymore. And not only did it affect Remy's dad, but also Gusteau, who most likely developed a strong friendship with her, which of course would have led Gusteau into that deep depression that many believed was the cause of the poor food review he received from Anton Ego. It's a lot to take in, but you have to admit, the theories do answer a lot of questions that had formerly been left unanswered, and it does explain why Remy had such a strong palate when it came to food, and why Gusteau also believed that anyone can cook. Unfortunately, we didn't learn much about Remy's mom, at least not directly from the movie. We did see her in an animated short, but other than that, not much is known other than what can be speculated. And you have to admit, there seems to be an abundance of evidence supporting these seemingly connected theories. But what do you think? Was Remy's mom really Gusteau's little helper? And if not, what do you think happened to her? Be sure to let us know in the comments down below. As for now, that's all Disney fans. Let us know what topic you'd like to see next in the comments, and like and subscribe for more magically packed videos.